Now, normally I would start the show off talking about some of the breaking news of the day, but I'm not going to do that today because I'm going to go through the breaking news of the day with comedian extraordinaire from The Dollop, Dave Anthony. Welcome, Dave Anthony.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
This is in the Business Insider, though I know other outlets picked it up. I just went with this one. The headline is, a $1,400 stimulus check will allow 22.6 million Americans to pay their bills in full through mid-July. New report finds.
I'm not a big math guy, but there's well over 300 million people, so 22 million is actually a really shitty number. Just, I don't know, from where I'm sitting, with all the people that are getting 22 million, that's not great. They've
said this like 4 times now, and we're not even like 2 paragraphs in.
It's just so insane. Like the fact that it's just amazing that anybody would print that and be like, come on, you guys.
Right.
Really? I mean, let's talk.
I mean,
people need like $3,000 a month every single month. And
right.
when did they get checks? Was it June? And then $600 in December?
Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous.
They're lucky they're not actually trying to eat Congress right now. Like literally drag them out and eat them. Like it's crazy.
You know, and this is again something that both parties are endorsing. So the outlet behind this is Morning Consult, and I don't know much about them. I know they run a lot of polls. We have media groups from both sides of the aisle that rely on them. They do polling for elected officials as well. I think they began in 2014, and their first poll was about the ACA and whether or not the public would buy it. So I'm suspicious about where some of the backing is coming for this company, but I've not done a deep dive into it. I'm curious to know if anybody has. If they haven't, they should. I'd like to see some work in this area. So, but let's talk about the next paragraph. The House Committee on Ways and Means included $1,400 stimulus checks with a $75,000 income threshold for individuals in its stimulus bill. And the report from Morning Consult found that if those checks are delivered by March, many Americans will be able to avoid financial hardship through mid-July. Well, so now we're getting into the weeds where they're basically looking at people that are having a continued income. That's the 22 million number, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's also so crazy because you're like, all right, that's the limit. You're like, what about people who live in San Francisco?
Right.
Is this the same as people live in southern Louisiana? Like, is it Oklahoma, New York?
Right.
You cannot do that. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. They're just like, yeah, 75,000. Look, all these people have been trained by austerity think tanks, and that's all they're doing.
No, you're right on that, austerity think tanks. And it's both parties that do this. In January, according to the report, roughly 30.2 million adults were unable to pay their bills. But following the $600... I'm sorry, I can't even get through this.
What?
But following the $600 stimulus payments approved in December, there was a 7 percentage point improvement from the months prior in terms of ability to pay. In other words, the stimulus checks have not dramatically changed the number of people unable to pay their bills, but it brought them closer to paying their bills. Like, is this really what we're mitigating?
Did you say 7%?
Yeah.
So they didn't use the number 93%.
No, they were only looking for a 7 percentage point improvement. That's good enough, apparently.
Not the 93% not improved? That's the number you're going with?
No,
the old
I know,
7?
I know.
Yeah, let's pick the most insignificant number of people that were helped. Could you imagine sending out a check and it only helping 7% of people and being like, well, man, we nailed that.
Well, it's a 7% improvement, but yeah, you're not wrong for saying that. So, here's the other weird thing. People are forgetting that there has been a buildup in bills that are going to be due at some point, right? So if you've been in one of these groups and you haven't been paying your rent because of COVID, at some point you're going to have to make due on those payments. They just don't go poof and disappear.
Right.
This is a giant toxic financial meltdown waiting to happen.
Yeah, our government has been kicking the can down the road since March.
Yeah.
And at some point, the can's going to hit a wall, and then all hell's going to break loose.
Right.
Millions of people can't pay the rent.
No.
They can't pay the rent.
22 million
They're lining
will be
up
helped.
for food.
Dave, the LA basin is 10 million people. That's only double that. Think about that for the entire country. And you mentioned at the beginning of the article, how many people are in the country that aren't going to be helped millions and millions and millions. All right, so
Hundreds of millions.
Hundreds of millions.
Like, it's completely astounding.
It's astounding.
Yeah.
Financial suffering was concentrated in low-income groups making $50,000 or less per year, according to the report, with 16% of...
Who the fuck else is going to be most hurt? What the fuck?
With I knew this was going to be fun. With 16% of survey respondents in those income groups indicating that their expenses exceeded their income in January.
Because they don't have any money. That's what happens when you don't have money. Then you exceed your expenses. You're like, this is like talking to a 5-year-old. This is what a 5-year-old say. I didn't get as much as I gave.
Right.
Yeah, no shit, man. Congratulations.
All right. So if widespread vaccinations are successfully achieved by the end of June, economic activity should accelerate in July and make government support less necessary, the report said.
Yeah, so here's how it works. So all these people have thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of rent due. They've been paying for food and anything else they can with credit cards. And then in June, there's going to be a vaccine. And then we all go to Happy Land. And then everything's fine. It's totally fine at that point. What could be the problem? I don't see a problem.
I don't think we all go to Happy Land, Dave. I think that people have $10K in credit card debt and $20K in back rent due in June.
Yeah. I mean, at some point, the fires are coming, right? That's, like, I don't know how else are people going to sit through this? Like,
know.
It's like if I'm sitting at home and I can't pay my rent, and I know that a day's coming where I'm going to get evicted and I am maxed out on my credit cards, like, I'm furious watching whatever is happening. And they're like, hey, man, here's 600. We're still talking about the other 1,400. We're going to talk about it for like 6 months.
Let's talk about that for a second, Dave, because now, Biden campaigned on a $2K check when he was going through Georgia. He made it really clear, you vote for these guys, you're going to get $2K right away. There wasn't any argument about we're adding $1,400 to $600K that you got from Trump. That didn't become a thing until a PR firm got involved after the fact. So this is a really disingenuous argument, and my concern at this point...
it's bad.
Yeah, it's bad. So my concern is they're already handing the, 2 years from now, the elections over to the Republicans again. They're going to lose everything that they gained in the Senate and House.
Yeah, they've already probably blown it by just delaying the checks this long. I mean, we're already in mid-February. They said as soon as they got in, they would send out checks, which they could have done with one bill, just send it out. Right. But also, if you have to send a math equation with your relief check, then it's probably not a good policy plan. It's bad. Like, this is how we got here.
This is how we got here, especially when you promise 2K. All right, so the next section is entitled Decrease Income Thresholds for the Stimulus Payments and Increase Child Benefits. So the Democratic Party is really addicted to means testing, and I have a problem.
Oh, my God. I mean, it's embarrassing. It's like they're lovers. It's just upsetting.
It's so crazy. Upsetting. And the reason it's upsetting is this. I'm going to go off on a little tangent here and come back to the article. Universal programs need universal buy-in in order to be successful, right? The reason people can't touch Medicare and Social Security is because everybody gets it, right? Once you've made something universal, it takes away that initiative from everybody to say, I'm not getting it, screw those people, right? So it's really necessary and it's really important, and it's something that the Democratic Party needs to come to terms with. If you do a program that's solely about the poor folks, right? It struggles through appropriations, it gets pounced upon, and at some point it dies a slow and painful death. We have seen examples of this time and time again. So for me, it's like, stop the means testing, do universal programs, and if anybody's out there saying, well, I don't want the rich guy to get a UBI payment of 2K. The rich guy doesn't need it. Why do you care if it helps millions of poor people, number one? And number two, the rich guy is going to end up paying income tax on that. So it becomes kind of a wash. So there's no really good arguments for means testing. Why do you think the Democratic Party is so addicted to means testing?
It goes back to the fact that they take money and listen to think tanks that are set up by billionaires to tell government not to spend money. And also, these are all rich people. I mean, there's some Cory Bushes and some people out there who rose up, obviously AOC, but the most of them are millionaires, and they just don't care. They don't understand. They really probably think someone can pay rent with $600. They have no idea. They live in a fantasy world.
Yeah.
It's like we're letting people who live in clouds tell us how to farm. Like it's bananas.
Oh, that's good. That's exactly what it is. All right. So redirected the money sent to higher income households to lower income households or small business assistant would drive consumer spending higher and reduce more financial hardship, the report said. This recommendation did not specify a threshold for individuals, but it plays into the concerns of many Democratic lawmakers, and that lowering the threshold below $75,000, which was the threshold for the $600 payments, will cut out many individuals from needed aid. How do they think this is going to drive consumer spending when people have a backlog of $20K in bills? Just think about the fact that Trump sent them $600 checks from Trump. I mean, that's what happened. And then they're like, oh yeah, the rest of you don't get money. Yeah.
Give it to the other people. So you got a $600 check. Democrats said, we're going to give you a $2,000 check. And then they give some people $1,400 and a bunch of the people that got $600, nothing. The fact that that is even being discussed in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a just nightmare of an economic situation, they're discussing this. Mm-hmm. They have no idea what they're doing. Right now, if they did an FDR type thing, they would be in government, running Congress with the presidency for 50 years. They're so stupid. It's amazing.
It is amazing. And
I never thought they could be this bad.
Yeah, right. Here's the thing. So if they lower the threshold to below 75K, which was the threshold for $600 payments from Trump, they did talk about lowering it to 50K for a second a couple of weeks ago, which was shocking to me. And really what should be happening is an emergency UBI. There should be payments getting sent out every month to everybody, not means tested, just going out. If they really want to save capitalism from self-destruction, this is what they need to do at this point.
But that's a problem, isn't it? Because if you just give people money, then it tells people that the government can take care of them and give them money. And if that happens, people might be asking, why don't I have health care? Why don't I have these other things?
Right.
So that's why they don't want to give any money.
Right.
Because they're scared of what comes, because that ends with billionaires being taxed out of existence.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.